Well, hello there, everyone. My name is Brenda Williams, and I am the founder of Culture Shifters Unite, which is a womanist multimedia platform that focuses on media production, placemaking, communal gatherings, so that we may foster compassionate leadership, just leadership, and the feminine way. And I am so excited to be here with you all because it took me a minute to finally articulate, even within myself, what was emerging. And I had to think about that through a wilderness experience of grief, caregiving, what I could hold, what I couldn't. And grief will definitely show you what you can hold and what you cannot, who holds you and who does not. And when I think about sustainable success and that it can't be through self abandonment, I want to take it back just a bit because we even have to redefine what success is. Sometimes success is just getting through the day, getting through the moment, getting through the second. That can be a success, especially when you feel like the four walls around you are careening and you are in multiple places at once. And what do I mean by that? The day can be Wednesday and you have already jumped a year, maybe 2 years or 3 years ahead. Or sometimes we can ruminate on the past. And so we're never truly present, and our nervous systems are just all over the place because everything feels urgent. You feel like you are just one catastrophe away from total annihilation and collapse. And where we're in conditions like we are in, where we have multiple genocides unfolding on the planet, when we have um, here on these shores of the United States a very real leadership who is daily taking away human rights, invalidating existence, when we who are attempting to do good work, especially my leaders in the nonprofit space, governmental spaces, watching resources that were once there are no longer present. Issues that once were at the forefront or seemingly at the forefront have now become pariah, dirty words. I remember seeing a Baba in the community, father in the community, named that urban farming has become a pariah word in grant language. And so if you've been dependent on grant dollars for sustainability, if you have had them as part of your livelihood, part of keeping payroll, you're realizing that those resources are no longer there. And that creates its own sense of anxiety. Or if you're in the for profit space, how do you continue to move through uncertainty? Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
You can't, you cannot, um, you can't abandon yourself. You can't allow the what is seemingly um all of the worst case scenarios to consume you into a feeble position. And so how do we, well, how do you, Berta, how do you, have an outlook of possibility when everything seems impossible? Well, so glad you asked, because for years we've been taught discipline. If we just stayed disciplined, discipline many times overrides your body, which contains wisdom. The heart is the seat of our courage. Lungs carry grief. The spleen can be a repository for anger. And so when we push through exhaustion to keep producing, to wake earlier, to do more. And in many professional environments, burnout becomes normalized. And rewarded. So lately, I myself have been finding that I have to answer a different question. What if consistency rooted in self punishment is not sustainable leadership? What if devotion creates deeper transformation than force ever could? What is devotion when we are devoted to something? I think that when we commit deeply to not just a cause, but use this tool that I think is a super powerful tool, and that's imagination. Imagination is a key to liberation. Imagination is the key to possibility. And if we're in a state where we are finding ourselves consistently stressed, consistently consumed, it's hard to imagine a different scenario in a different space. So we have to, and I encourage us to take a break. What does a break look like? Break looks like using your PTO days. A break looks like taking a walk in the middle of the day. A break can look like blowing bubbles. A break can look like dancing for no reason at all. Because what happens is when the mind is not preoccupied with worry and it can fall into a state of coherence, love brings us into coherence. Listening to love songs, listening or watching or having the comfort of an animal or being in good company can help us to co regulate. And when we live inside of systems that reward overexertion, emotional suppression, hyperproductivity, nervous system dysregulation, performance over presence, we will have leadership that's perpetuating a model that is not sustainable. And many leaders have learned how to succeed professionally while becoming disconnected personally. This is why so many times we say, oh, I'm doing great at work, but my personal life is in a shambles. And eventually, the body, sadly, will retain the dysregulation, or in some cases, keep the score. Not just physically, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, but relationally. We, as human beings, are social creatures. We are not meant to isolate. We are not meant to hyper focus. We have moved into a space, I hope, in our humanity where we're really moving inward and listening to the compass of our heart, of our spirits, of our souls. And so the difference between force and devotion, at least what I'm beginning to realize, is that habits that actually stay with me are not the ones that are built on shame. They're the ones that are built on care. And know that I'm a village baby. I remember growing up in and with extended family, aunt so and so, uncle so. While they weren't biologically my family, spiritually they were. They were chosen family that stepped in and interceded on my behalf as if they were blood relatives. And it's important, especially right now, for us to curate our garden of people, to cultivate our garden of care. And so while you might be at your big age having an extended uncle, father, you can still have one. Think about your community, and many of us are so isolated, but think about the neighbors, your neighborhood. Do you interface with your neighbors? On your teams, um, do we ask questions about graduation or ballet practice or soccer practices or other ways in which we take stock and interest in our colleagues, in their lives, and the things that make them exactly who they are. Now, I'm not saying we have to divulge all the personal information, but when care is present, productivity actually increases. Why? Because then that gives the work meaning, because we have assigned care to the actual human being that is producing. And I have to look at rhythms that nourish me. So, for example, I by nature am not a morning person, so I'm not an early riser. So, in many atomic habits or professional spaces or professional development or self help, the early bird gets the worm. I don't like worms, so the early bird can have it. For me, my day has to be slower because I'm thinking for not just myself, I'm thinking for a father with dementia. So, you know, I do tend to rise when he does, but that's not my natural modus operandi. Make sure that his teeth are brushed, that he has his medication. There's been signs of dehydration, so I make sure that he drinks a full glass of water. And I look at my rhythm. Mondays and Fridays, I try to keep a slower day, no meeting with clients or heavy lifting on those days, just to further insulate myself so that my energy and my bandwidth can be a lot more focused. So, I mean, that's a rhythm that works for me. Practices that connect me to myself. So, writing poetry helps me to connect back to myself, to find my center. Playlists. I love making playlists. I make playlists to honor where I am and also to create pathways to where I want to be. Things that are deeply percussive. So, house music makes me feel very good. I like rituals that help me to remain human while I'm building a life. So, morning devotionals are great, binaural beats, jazz as a remedy. I do like listening to jazz music, particularly like Ahmad Jamal, Alice Coltrane. Um, I love listening to Eddie Palmieri, um, Ella Fitzgerald, Dinah Washington. Scatting actually helps to regulate me, whether I do it for myself or listen to it. But what I'm getting at are rhythms, rituals, practices, candles, prayer, hymns, spirituals work, drums. You know, when I listen to Afro Cuban music, the drum beat, because it's a primordial sound, it helps me to connect back to my heart. And when I'm connected back to my heart, I can come back to my center and align head and heart. Now, I know that's a very different framework for leadership because what does that have to do with productivity? Well, how about this? You are a human being and not a human doing. And if you can remember that quotas and benchmarks and, of course, SMART goals, I'm not telling you not to have ambitions and not to have uh, benchmarks and touch points and indicators if one is being successful. But we have to also adjust what our metrics are for success. What does it truly mean to be successful? Because we can hit the bottom line financially, but if we are spiritually and emotionally bankrupt, all that's going to matter is that you're a carcass that is simply animated and that is just going through the motions of life, that is existing and not living. So I think this matters deeply for founders who happen to be caregivers, feminine leaders, nonprofit leaders, creatives, community builders, people who are carrying deep emotional labor. And this is where soft power leadership, we must understand that it is not weak leadership, it is sustainable leadership. It requires emotional intelligence, nervous system health matters, relational integrity matters, humanity matters. Can we build lives, organizations without destroying ourselves in the process? Can discipline exist without self violence? And so here's my invitation to you. I no longer believe that success requires self abandonment. I desire coherence. I want sustainability. I want my life and my nervous system, well, a life where my nervous system can actually inhabit and live in. And maybe this is an invitation for all of us. How do I force myself to do more? So, what are the ways that you are pushing yourself beyond your own threshold? What does it look like to come to the threshold? And let's contemplate rhythms. What rhythms help me stay connected while I am becoming? What's your rhythm of life? So, I'd like to hear from you in the comments. What has helped you build more sustainably? And what does leadership without self abandonment look like for you? It was really beautiful this weekend past. I hosted an unnetworking event at Joe's Upscale Resale Shop, and we had an amazing panel. We had Samantha Barish, Susan Holliday, Liliana Ospina, Dr. Dana Braxton, and Joe Braxton, no relation that we know of. But what ended up happening was I had to take my dad with me to make sure that he had care, and I had someone, a dear friend of mine, sit with him so that I could be present, so that I could focus, right? So I'm not looking at my phone to look at cameras or be concerned, did he wander off? That helped me to regulate. But as I came in, what can I do to help? Having the right people around me. So, all right, you want to help? Please help me put cards on table. So, can we put cards on table? Hey, can someone please help me with check-in and making sure that people are welcomed as they come into the space? Volunteer support. The space was gorgeous. So shout out to Lux by Renee for making an amazing brunch for us to enjoy. But just having the presence of communal care was absolutely amazing. And giving up what I was carrying, because we carry a lot. I don't know why I thought I could come in with bags and a suitcase and set up and facilitate and host all at the same time. Mm. So, no. So, I'd love to hear from you. What are ways that you are opening and asking for help? What are the ways that you're allowing yourself to be more vulnerable with your asks? And maybe even say, I don't know. Because we're in a place now where leadership has got to evolve for the sake of our humanity, of who we are and what we're doing and what we're being. Because we're called to carry a lot right now in this season. But it is easier if we understand we don't have to carry it alone. So, my name is Brenda Williams, founder of Culture Shift Hers Unite, a womanist multimedia platform that is centered in care, compassion, and sustainable leadership. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you in the comments. All right, bye for now.